The day has finally come. Auburn has fired Hugh Freeze, breaking it all down, talking about how we got here, what went wrong for Hugh Freeze at Auburn, and some names to look out for in the coaching search. There'll probably be some names that will surprise a lot of people, but we'll throw them out there anyway. You're watching the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Coon.
Happy Sunday evening. This is the Crowded Booth. Thanks for hanging out. We're talking Auburn tonight. Per usual, if you just see me by myself, my name is Will Maness. So yeah, like I said, Hugh Freeze out at Auburn. Just simply comes down to not good enough on the field. 15-19 overall record, just 6-15 in SEC play. Over that time, that's 34 games, 21 SEC games, only 6 wins. Just not good enough on the field, and really on one side of the ball, which is it's been hard to watch for Auburn fans, for myself as an Auburn fan to have watched. Really, the end of the Hugh Freeze tenure this year was really, really tough to watch. If you've been watching, been listening, caught the videos and pods of me talking about Auburn, I saw this coming in the spring after spring practice, that the Hugh Freeze tenure was going to be over sooner rather than later. I'm shocked that it took 9 games to get there into the 2025 season, just because the offense was so inept. But a lot of positivity after the first game against Baylor, but that proved to be a fluke. Baylor refusing to adjust in the game and making Auburn's quarterback, who for the first 6-7 games was Jackson Arnold before we got to see Ashton Daniels. Instead of putting it on him to win the game, and every other team saw that and decided, we're not going to let Auburn run the ball, and that proved to be the demise. This during the season, the crack started to show against South Alabama in the second half, who is not a good Sun Belt team. I mean, they are bottom half of the Sun Belt, and Auburn was very, very poor in the second half of that game. I think they only mustered 3 points in the second half of that game, and kind of fitting that the final Hugh Freeze game, Auburn can only put up 3 points on offense against a hapless, a dead man walking, zombified Kentucky Wildcats team. I mean, Kentucky came into the game last night against Auburn 15th in the SEC out of 16 in defense, and Auburn could only muster 3 points. That game was just kind of a microcosm of what Auburn has become under Hugh Freeze, especially the Auburn offense. A lot of the same things creeped up that we saw last year. And it was really just the last 2 weeks. Musical chairs at quarterback between Jackson Arnold and Ashton Daniels. Neither guy was going to work. And it really comes down to the scheme. The offensive scheme was just – the only way to put it is pathetic. I mean, that you've committed all this money to the offense. Quarterback, Jackson Arnold, $2 million to come be your quarterback. Offensive line, you get 2 of the top offensive tackles in the transfer portal, Xavier Chaplin and Mason Murphy, and they have not been good. Mason Murphy last night, I don't even know who the edge rusher was for Kentucky. I haven't even gone back and watched the game or really thought about the game because it was so just pathetic from an Auburn perspective that it was not worth my time. Shouldn't be worth anybody's time to go back and even look and think about that game. But that edge rusher for Kentucky just was running by Mason Murphy the entire second half, especially. And, you commit all that. The wide receivers. Talk about the wide receivers. I mean, I think Auburn's offense had three different routes, maybe 4. with Cam Coleman being the guy that could run a go route. It was curl routes, it was slants, it was drags, and some go routes. That was basically it. You're paying all this money. You have all these athletes. You have Eric Singleton, who, in a lot of people's eyes, not Auburn people's eyes, nationally, the crown jewel wide receiver in the transfer portal, and has been grossly misused. Coaching malpractice is the only way to describe what Auburn's offense has been this year. And, people calling for Deuce Knight. Deuce Knight, where's the 5-star freshman Deuce Knight? It doesn't matter. That's how bad the offense is. It doesn't matter. You're doing more harm than good to throw Deuce Knight out there. But now, Hugh Freeze out, DJ Durkin in. We don't know anything really yet about what the offensive staff is going to look like, what the offensive scheme, if it's going to be any different, what that's going to look like. So, maybe roll Deuce Knight out there the rest of the year, because you're not going to gain much by playing Jackson Arnold, Ashton Daniels at this point. Ralph distracted me with the comment. It's just coaching malpractice. Is the only way to put it. The last few weeks, I had kind of gotten some hope that, maybe not gotten some hope, but my hope has been that, maybe keep Hugh Freeze around because he's such a great recruiter. I mean, I don't know what he's been selling these high school recruits, but they get asked, they come to games, take unofficial visits to all these games. They want to be in Jordan-Hare Stadium. They get asked the question, about the game and about what they thought. And, they kept saying all the right things about wanting to play for Hugh Freeze, wanting to come to Auburn, thinking Auburn, to use Hugh Freeze's words, was really close, which frankly, Auburn was really close. But after 9 games to hear really close and be that inept on offense, you're tired of hearing it. But if Hugh Freeze could have molded himself into a CEO, he tried that the first year, brought in Philip Montgomery to run the offense. He thought it wasn't good enough, so he took over himself, and it has just gotten worse every week since really the start of spring practice in 2024. It's gotten worse every week. But if you could have been like, you know what, this isn't working, I'm going to hire somebody, I'm going to let them run it, I'm going to try and stay out of the way, I'll offer pointers, advice, I think it would have worked great if he could have just been a recruiter, a recruiting CEO head coach, because the roster is so much better. I mean, this is I've said it since the spring. This is the best Auburn roster on paper in 5 or 6 years. And you're looking at a team and a head coach that has brought in this team, this roster, that is going to miss a bowl game for the second straight year, which is just, the only word I can describe it is pathetic. It's pathetic. Just pathetic. So, hot board time. Coaching carousel time. It's fun time of year, fun time. If you like message boards, it's fun time to be on message boards. I love it. It's a lot of fun. So hot board, my hot board 1.0, which is really just taking it from the Auburn message boards. But, I've looked at a lot of these coaches and thought long and hard, because there's 2 names on here that I haven't seen on Auburn's boards yet, which I'm kind of surprised by. So starting at the top, I have a 1A and a 1B. And they coincide with this dream hire, and I'll talk a realistic hire. 1A is Lane Kiffin, which is really the dream hire. We don't have to talk. Everybody knows about Lane Kiffin. I think anywhere Lane Kiffin goes, Lane will win. I don't know that it matters. I don't know that cultural fit really matters for him. I think he's a guy that's shown he can fit in anywhere. And he wins, and winning solves a lot of culture problems and fit problems. If you win, like LSU's a bad example because Brian Kelly was so bad, but Nick Saban, not a guy from the South, and he went down there and he won a national title. Pete, as always, trying to give his opinion. Pete Gate. Only when it's me, Pete wants to be up here. When all the guys are on the show, he kind of just hangs out on his own. But he won, and winning solves a lot of those question marks, those culture problems you may or may not have. And I think Lane Kiffin will go anywhere and win. But he's, I just think he's kind of a pipe dream at this point. He turned Auburn down 3 years ago when Pete, why don't you hop down? There you go. Turned Auburn down 3 years ago. Elected to stay at Ole Miss, and honestly, I think he's made Ole Miss into a better job than the Auburn job currently. I think he's built that and made it his own. I think he's got that booster base, that administration, wrapped around his finger. They're going to do whatever he wants them to do, and he's going to get a raise from them. It's just a matter of, do they want to pay? And in my opinion, I think they will pay, whether they want to or not, what an LSU or what a Florida or an Auburn could pay to keep them around. I think it's safe to say now, with what they've done in 2025 so far, Lane Kiffin is the best head football coach in Ole Miss history. I think you can say that now. I know they lost to Georgia, but I think they're going to make the playoff. They've got a good end of the season for them to just kind of cruise if they don't make the SEC championship game. Which is still a possibility. They may not make it. But I think they're going to be in the playoff. And, ranking these jobs, I would put Ole Miss ahead of Auburn, but I'd put Ole Miss ahead of Florida too. I think the only job better than Ole Miss would be LSU, because Florida behind the scenes is a bit of a mess in the NIL deal, and Florida's kind of behind. They've had trouble getting that going and getting organized. So I think the only job better than Ole Miss is LSU. So Lane Kiffin would be my dream hire, just because I think he'll win anywhere. Realistic is my 1B. It's John Summerall. I zeroed in on John Summerall. Well, Ralph's in the background. He can help me. About 4 weeks ago, maybe 5 weeks ago, is when I started definitively saying, this is the guy. Auburn needs to go hire him. I know he's you can say he's inexperienced. He's young. He's 42 years old. But he's also a guy that is already on his second head coaching job, right? And he hadn't been a head coach very long. He was at Troy. Ralph, help me get it right. 2 years? Yep, 2 seasons at Troy. He won 11 games both years, won the Sun Belt. Takes over at Tulane. I've seen comments online, people talking about his time at Tulane, saying that they've taken a step back under Summerall, which I think is kind of ridiculous. But Willie Fritz did a incredible job at Tulane. I think Summerall has kept it going. It's really hard at a place, especially like Tulane, where you're one of the best group of 5 teams, so you're getting a lot of attention anyway, and your best players, if they have eligibility, they're going to be poached, right? So I think it's a hard place to keep up that success, keep that success up there. But I think he's done a great job, and I'm at the point on Summerall. Dr. Bob agrees that Summerall has built upon Fritz. Yeah, just the wins and losses maybe not there like Fritz had, but the American's a little bit more competitive, I think, than Fritz, especially his big year. They went 12-2, won the Cotton Bowl. Yeah, Dr. Bob's right. Mensa, Hughes, and Bowman, all even was devastating. Yes, it was. I'm at the point now on Summerall. I'm so far in on Summerall, that's going to be clipped because that didn't come out right. He can lose every game the rest of the year, and I don't care. I want him as Auburn's coach. I think his mentality, I think the culture that he built at Troy and he's building at Tulane, because he's still real early at Tulane, is what Auburn needs. Auburn needs a blue-collar, hardworking, no-nonsense, lunch pail type of head coach right now. No flash, all grit, all business, and I think that's John Summerall. And he's an Alabama native. He's coached in the SEC. Was linebackers coach, co-coordinator at Kentucky. Before that, he held a position at Ole Miss, off-the-field position. And he seems like a guy that gets it. Listening to his press conferences, he's critical of his players, holds them to a high standard, but he does it without throwing them under the bus. And that's going to be a big shift, and a big shift that Auburn needs right now. Just going back to Freeze, I think part of his downfall was, he's a guy that – and I don't think this is wrong. I just think this, in a football sense, you're going to struggle to have success and win championships because it's cutthroat business. Wins and losses are the only thing that matters. Hugh Freeze is a guy who made decisions in his life, well documented publicly, made some poor decisions, personally and professionally. Ended up affecting him professionally. And it was so very public. He had to be humbled, and he's been shown a lot of grace to continue to coach at Liberty, which is still just kind of shocking to me with what he did, the mistakes he made, and he ends up getting a second chance at Liberty. It takes a lot of grace, gets a lot of grace from Auburn, the SEC, to come back and give it another go in the SEC. He was shown that much grace, and he was trying to show that to his coaches and his players. I think that ultimately was a downfall. I've called it a lack of accountability. Because, like I say, coaching, especially in the SEC, is cutthroat. I think John Summerall has that. He loves his players. There's no doubt about it. His players love playing for him. And he knows how to call them out without throwing them under the bus. And that's a big difference that I think between him and Freeze. And I think it's needed at Auburn right now. So I think he's my number one guy and my number one more realistic guy over Lane Kiffin. But I'm all in on John Summerall. That's who I want. I hope John Cohen can go get him. I called last night's game against Kentucky the loser gets fired bowl, and the loser would probably get John Summerall between Kentucky and Auburn. I said Auburn could set themselves back even further by beating Kentucky. But, of course, when the game kicked off, I wanted Auburn to win, and that didn't happen. But I think it at least gives Auburn more of an inside track maybe to Summerall than Kentucky, which I think would be the other more realistic SEC job for Summerall. But he's my guy. I trust that he could come in and get it done. Yeah, like Dr. Bob says, everything's earned under Summerall. I think that Auburn needs that. I just think culturally Auburn needs that. My next guy going to number 3, Jeff Brom from Louisville. Brom's a guy like Kiffin that I think can win anywhere he's been. Quoting Bryce, we've said it. He won at Purdue. I think that's enough track record that he could come down to the SEC and do a pretty decent job. Another guy that maximizes his talent. Maximizes the talent he has on the roster. He's done a great job. They showed that at Purdue. You have to do it at Purdue. The hang up on Brom, though, I think is he's at his alma mater at Louisville. They're having a really good year. Had a really good year last year. They were just short. I guess it was 2 years ago, falling in the ACC title game to Florida State. I think he's a guy that can win, right? But he hasn't done it in the South, which would be another hang up for Auburn after the Brian Harsin era. Or a guy that's not a regional fit, maybe not even a cultural fit, but he's a guy that's won, and Auburn needs some wins, and Jeff Brom's a guy I think could do it. But being at his alma mater, it'll be tough for Auburn to pull him, I think, from Louisville. Number 4, the Crowder Booth just saw get a big overtime win against a top 10 team on Saturday, Rhett Lashley. Lashley is a guy that I have really liked for a long time. Of course, former Auburn offensive coordinator under Gus Malzahn. Also spent a couple years as a grad assistant, 2009, 2010 at Auburn. So he knows Auburn. He's connected at Auburn. He knows whose good list you have to be on at Auburn to be successful as far as behind the scenes stuff goes. Big hang up on Rhett, though, is he loves Dallas. He's done really well at SMU. He's made a playoff there already. They're not out of it in the ACC race, just one conference loss. They've got 3 losses, but just one conference loss. They're not out of it. I think to make the playoff this year, they will have to win the ACC. They've got a tough end of the year. They do play Louisville, which will be a de facto elimination game in a few weeks. But Lashley's a guy that I like a lot. I think he'd fit well at Auburn. But there's certainly some folks probably behind the scenes. I've read some things that make me think that he kind of burned some bridges on his way out, which his time as offensive coordinator did not end well. It was a tumultuous 2016 season, the worst season under Malzahn. 2015 didn't end well either. And some things went down behind the scenes that he didn't appreciate, and I wouldn't either, being in his position. But I like him a lot. I think, of course, being at Auburn before, I think he would have success at Auburn. Number 5, Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri. A very different candidate, I think, than anyone on this list. Eli Drinkwitz, he's, rightly or wrongly, just he's a goofy guy, just a different personality. There's been question marks about how would he gel with the powers that be behind the scenes. I think those are fair because he's unlike a lot of guys that Auburn has hired and a lot of guys that have worked at Auburn. Of course, I believe he was a GA and then maybe quality control 2009, 2010 time with Malzahn when he was the offensive coordinator. So some history at Auburn there. Been a head coach at a couple places, App State and Missouri. Obviously got Missouri to a Cotton Bowl, took down Ohio State a couple years ago. So he's had a ton of success at Missouri. I think he's another guy that would be tough to pull away from where he's at because he's had such success at Missouri. He's at the number one school, not just in Missouri, but in the region that central of the country region. I think Missouri and the success that he's had being in the SEC, he can go outside of the state of Missouri and pluck some really good guys. He's got great NIL support at Missouri. Florida is also another program to watch for Eli Drinkwitz. I think he's just a really good coach. I think he's pretty no nonsense as well. Goofy for sure. His antics after the Auburn game, I'm sure turned a lot of people off, myself included. But I think he's just a really good coach that has the passion that I think has been lacking. I mean, the last two Auburn coaches, you can argue neither were really all that passionate. And Auburn, again, I think this program needs some life, needs some passion. I think Drinkwitz will bring that. And in number 6, last one on my list, Charles Kelly. Yeah, here's Ralph. More info on Drink. Drink came to Auburn with Malzahn from Springdale High School. He was quality control and followed Gus to Arkansas State. Yep. Another Malzahn guy, which would be another hang up for Drinkwitz and for Lashley, being Malzahn guys. Malzahn, I don't understand. I'm one of the guys that loves Malzahn, and there's a lot of Auburn people that don't. So kind of polarizing. The last one, Charles Kelly, and this one is a name that when I say it, my Auburn friends just roll their eyes. They don't know whether to cry or vomit. But I'm telling you, Charles Kelly is going to be a guy that gets an interview, especially if he finishes the year strong at Jacksonville State. He is very well respected, very well liked by the powers that be at Auburn. Former Auburn player, played for Pat Dye, so there's some of that no-nonsense, that Pat Dye DNA that Auburn has been looking for since Pat Dye retired in 1992. That's what Auburn's been looking for. And he's a guy that a lot of Auburn people that are going to be helping make this decision, they believe he's got it. And Jacksonville stays off to a good start. They're 5-3. That's his first head coaching job. He's 58 years old, and he's just got his first head coaching job at Jacksonville State. He done some good things. I like their offense. If he could bring his offensive coordinator, Clint Trickett, with him, that would certainly excite me. Charles Kelly, another guy with a defensive background. He was Auburn's co-defensive coordinator last year. Worked for Nick Saban, worked for Bobby Bowden, or maybe it was just Jimbo Fisher. But he was at Florida State in the peak years of Jimbo Fisher in the early 2010s. Guy with a track record of success. He's a guy that's going to get a look for sure. Do not be surprised when reports and stories come out that Charles Kelly has interviewed for this job. So going back through my list, 1A, 1B, just because Lane Kiffin, dream hire. John Summerall at 1B, who's really the guy I really want. Jeff Brom, Rhett Lashley, Eli Drinkwitz, and Charles Kelly. I think all some really good names there. I think some low-risk names as well. The most risky name is Summerall, but he's the one that I want the most. I just think the energy, passion, accountability that he would bring, the culture he would bring and install is really needed at Auburn right now. And that's really why he's at the top of my list. He's going to hire coordinators and let them do their job, which is has become uncommon at Auburn. And it's just a change of pace, a breath of fresh air that I think Auburn needs right now. Because I think I said this after Brian Harsin. Hugh Freeze kind of revitalized things because he recruited so well. But Auburn is teetering of being left behind in the new college football world, if they haven't been left behind already. So Auburn, imperative that Auburn gets this right, because Auburn's a program that should be, and John Cohen said it in his statement, the standard and expectation is to compete for championships every year. I mean, if Auburn puts together a playoff team, 2 out of 4 years, I think a lot of people will be happy. I would be happy with that, because you're going to play Alabama, you're going to play Georgia every year. The SEC is not getting any easier. And, I think Hugh Freeze has hinted at it. Other coaches have hinted at it. 9-3 is going to be a really good year in the SEC. The current setup of the SEC. 8-4 is going to be a good year. 9-3, you're looking at contending for the playoff, and I think that's where Auburn should be every year. I don't think there's any excuse for Auburn to not be there. Recruiting should never fall off. I mean, every coach, every head coach at Auburn that has attempted to recruit, that has put forth some effort in recruiting, has successfully recruited to Auburn. When coaches didn't want to recruit, Tuberville, his last couple of years, got relaxed in recruiting. Brian Harsin didn't want to recruit, and they couldn't recruit. Malzahn tried to recruit. He recruited at a high enough level. Chizik recruited good enough. And Freeze, back-to-back top 10 classes, and we're talking about some of the 2 worst years in the history of Auburn football. So not worried about that, but you got to have somebody that can build a roster and know how to backfill. To have sustained success, use the portal, use high school recruiting to be able to consistently, year in, year out, be competitive. So the last 3 games for Auburn, DJ Durkin is going to take over. He's going to be the interim head coach. He and athletic director John Cohen will speak with the media tomorrow afternoon. I'm sure we'll get more insight onto what the offensive staff will look like. I'll have my opinion on that. Looking at it now, at who is on the staff, I don't know. I don't know what you do. As far as calling the plays, who's doing offense. I'm interested to see who Durkin wants to keep around, who Durkin gets rid of. Very interested to see that. And if he goes with analysts, I mean, I've looked at all the analysts. I don't know if there's anybody there that's had any success or experience, much less success at doing it. So it's going to be a very, very interesting last 3 games. But man, I don't think it can get worse than Kentucky did on Saturday night for Auburn offensively. But yeah, remains to be seen. So Jake says, don't worry, I'll be calling the 3rd down plays for Auburn. Somebody needs to. So yeah, we'll call it here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Hit that subscribe button, because hey, it's silly season now. Coaching carousel season. Auburn's in it now. Auburn dove in it head first tonight. So you're gonna get a lot of opinions from me. Probably a lot that you'll find entertaining, which means they'll be negative for me. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you don't miss anything we do. We're talking college football all the time. We'll have we've got weekly recaps, weekly previews of all the games nationally, not just SEC, not just ACC. Talking a ton of that. Bryce has Georgia Tech show, which the vast majority of you already know about. That's how you know about us. That's not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere either. So subscribe. We're talking college football all the time. Thanks again for hanging out, and hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The crowded booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Coon.